Clark is all class, and she should be complimented, lauded, and applauded for how she handles herself, not crushed and critiqued. I've never seen an athlete's race brought into discussions at the level it is.
Clark is all class, and she should be complimented, lauded, and applauded for how she handles herself, not crushed and critiqued. I've never seen an athlete's race brought into discussions at the level it is with Caitlin Clark. One tweet sparked outrage across the sports world. The highest-scoring player in NSA history became the center of controversy. Media outlets attacked a 22-year-old for showing respect to her peers, and came the response that left Megyn Kelly speechless. But anyhow, Megyn Kelly was one of the people who commented on what Caitlin Clark had to say. She wrote on her X account a big, long, little diatribe. Look at this. She's on the knee, all but apologizing for being white and getting attention. America's newest basketball icon just taught a masterclass in handling hate. The aftermath changed everything. This is a story they didn't want you to hear. Let's talk about a media firestorm that erupted over absolutely nothing. You know how sometimes people just want to create drama where there isn't any. Well, this story perfectly shows what happens when social media outrage meets one of basketball's brightest young stars race. And I know there have been racial components in sport, especially when you go back in the past, and I know it's been brought up before. Tiger Woods obviously being a pioneer in golf, the Williams sisters, so on and so forth. It's not as if people haven't seen race or discuss it. Clearly it was a part of the Magic Johnson and Larry Bird rivalry. I was a little bit young for that, but even looking back, I see it as part of the fabric of that story, not the driving force. It all started with a simple interview. Caitlin Clark, fresh off breaking the NCAA scoring record and making headlines in the WNBA, sat down for what should have been a routine conversation about basketball. This wasn't supposed to be controversial. Clark wasn't trying to make any grand statement. She was just being herself, humble, honest, and respectful of those who came before her. Time with Clark, it's just constantly hijacked by this and her comments where she said being white she has a privilege and she wants to uplift the black women in the league was like red meat for carnival barkers. Again, on each side, one side is saying she has to address, she has to say something, this is what we need, and then the other side is like, yeah, she be a, you're like, come on. During the interview, Clark mentioned something that shouldn't have been controversial at all. She talked about her love for the WNBA since childhood. She spoke about Maya Moore being her favorite player. And yes, she acknowledged that many amazing black women helped build the league over its 25-year history. That's it. No grand political statement, no apology for her success. Just a young athlete showing respect for the game's history. She's a basketball player, not a world leader. And a diplomat. She's popular because of basketball. It's like people want it to be about anything else, because they know they can use it to feed their feeds. They know her name brings engagement. But then Megyn Kelly got involved. Now let's be clear about something. Kelly isn't known for her basketball coverage. She doesn't regularly tweet about WNBA games. She hasn't been spotted courtside at Iowa matches. But suddenly she had a lot to say about Caitlin Clark, of the self-flagellation. Please pay attention to the black players who are really the ones you want to celebrate. Condescending, fake, transparent, sad, took to X, formerly Twitter, with a lengthy post that accused Clark of apologizing for being white. She called Clark's comments self-flagellation and condescending. According to Kelly, Clark was somehow wrong for acknowledging and appreciating the players who built the league she was about to join. But it got so noisy that Clark was actually asked about it at the time event. She was a good job by Maria Taylor asking her the question, by the way, because it's worth the response and giving Caitlin the platform. The reaction was swift. Kelly's comments spread like wildfire across social media. Suddenly everyone had an opinion about Clark's words. But here's the interesting part. Most of the loudest voices in this debate weren't basketball fans at all. They weren't people who'd watched Clark break scoring records. They weren't the ones who'd seen her incredible court vision or witness her clutch performances. The basketball community saw things differently. Analysts who'd covered the sport for years pointed out something obvious. Clark wasn't apologizing for anything. She was doing what great players have always done, acknowledging the legacy of the game they love. Think about it. Would anyone criticize an NBA rookie for praising Michael Jordan or Magic Johnson? Of course not. What made the situation even more absurd was Clark's actual track record. This is a player who led the nation in scoring and assists. She broke Pete Maravika's and class scoring record, a mark that stood for over 50 years. She earned everything through countless hours in the gym, through dedication to her craft, through pure talent and hard work. The real story here isn't about privilege or politics. It's about how social media can twist the most innocent comments into controversy. Clark wasn't trying to make any statement beyond appreciating the league she was joining. She wasn't apologizing for her success. She was acknowledging the shoulders she stands on, just like any respectful athlete would do. The timing of this controversy was particularly telling. Clark was in the middle of one of the most impressive runs in college basketball history. She was drawing record viewership to women's basketball games. Arena tickets was selling out wherever she played. She was transcending the sport in a way few athletes ever have, but instead of focusing on her incredible achievements on the court, certain media figures wanted to create controversy. They wanted to turn a basketball story into a political one. They wanted to take a moment of respect and turn it into a moment of division. The response from the basketball world was unified. Coaches, players, and analysts all stood behind Clark. They saw what was happening in an attempt to create controversy where none existed. Veterans of the game pointed out that Clark's comments were exactly what you'd want to hear from a young star entering the league. Former players praised Clark's maturity. They noted how she was handling her massive success with grace and humility instead of letting the spotlight shine solely on her. She was using her platform to elevate the entire sport. That's not condescension, that's leadership. As a controversy grew, something interesting happened. People started going back and actually watching Clark's original interview. They saw a genuine enthusiasm for the game. They heard her talk about growing up watching WNBA games. They realized that her comment about the league's history weren't false or political. They were simply true. The whole situation revealed a bigger truth about modern media. Sometimes the loudest voices in a debate are the ones who have the least connection to the actual subject. Kelly wasn't speaking as a basketball analyst or even as a fan. She was speaking as someone who saw an opportunity to create controversy. But then came the moment everyone was waiting for: Caitlin Clark's response. And let me tell you, it was a masterclass in handling criticism. Maria Taylor, who knows a thing or two about dealing with unfair media coverage, gave Clark the perfect platform to address a controversy. You'd expect a 22-year-old to be rattled by this kind of national attention, maybe get defensive, maybe fire back. But Clark, she stayed completely composed. When asked about Kelly's comments, she didn't even flinch. Instead, she delivered a response that showed exactly why she's become the face of women's basketball. Clark started by talking about perspective. That's right, while Kelly was busy creating drama on social media, Clark was focused on the bigger picture. She talked about earning everything in her career, no excuses, no apologies, just facts. She mentioned leading the nation in scoring and assists, breaking records, putting the work. But here's where Clark really showed her maturity. She didn't stop at defending herself. She talked about being a fan of the WNBA since childhood. She spoke about Maya Moore being her idol. This wasn't something PR crafted response. This was a genuine basketball lover talking about the game. She grew up watching the most powerful part. Clark said something that resonated with everyone. You'll never be able to make everyone happy. Think about that. At 22, she already understands something that many people never learn. She knows that her worth isn't determined by social media opinions or hot takes from non-basketball commentators. Her focus, the people in her locker room, her teammates, her coaches, the ones who see her work ethic every day. That's what matters to Clark, not the Twitter storms, not the manufactured controversies, just the game and the people who help her play it. The basketball world's reaction to Clark's response was immediate. Players, coaches, and analysts praised her maturity. They saw a young athlete handling criticism with grace while staying true to herself. No drama, no controversy, just pure class. What made Clark's response even more impressive was its timing. She was in the middle of a historic season, breaking records, drawing unprecedented attention to women's basketball, selling out arenas, and yet she handled this media circus like a veteran. The contrast between Kelly's angry tweet and Clark's measured response couldn't have been clearer. One was trying to create division, the other was focused on unity. One was looking for controversy, the other was talking about basketball. This whole situation revealed something important about sports media today. The loudest voices often come from people who don't actually follow the sport. They don't watch the games, they don't understand the context, they just see an opportunity to create controversy. But Clark, she stayed above it all. She kept breaking records, kept making incredible plays, kept bringing new fans to the game. That's what real impact looks like, not angry tweets or manufactured outrage, but actual achievement on the court. The aftermath of this controversy actually helped Clark's reputation grow even stronger. People saw how she handled pressure, how she stayed focused on what matters, how she refused to let others define her narrative. Think about this: while Kelly was busy critiquing Clark's comment, Clark was busy making history. She was drawing record viewership to women's basketball games, getting kids excited about the sport, inspiring a new generation of players. A real victory here wasn't in any social media battle. It was in how Clark showed young athletes everywhere how to handle criticism, stay focused, keep your perspective. Remember why you started playing in the first place. Looking at the numbers tells an interesting story. During this controversy, Clark's social media following grew by over 500,000 followers. Arena Attendance at her games increased, television ratings spiked, people wanted to see what all the fuss was about, and when they did, they stayed for the basketball. What's particularly noteworthy is how Clark's teammates responded. Not a single negative comment, no internal drama. Instead, they rallied around their leader, showing that her locker room comments weren't just talk. These were people who knew the real Caitlin Clark, not the social media version. Sports analysts who've covered basketball for decades praised Clark's approach. They pointed out how rare it is to see such maturity from a young athlete. Many compared her response to how veterans with years of media experience handle controversy. The WNBA community's support was particularly telling. Veterans of the league, including some of the very players Clark had praised, came to her defense. They saw in her comments what Kelly had missed: genuine respect for the game's history and its pioneers. What's particularly fascinating is how this controversy affected different demographics. Parents started bringing their daughters to games specifically because of how Clark handled herself. Youth basketball coaches used her response as a teaching moment. High school players quoted her in interviews about handling pressure. The media landscape shifted to remember those hot takes that dominated the first 24 hours after Kell's tweet. They quickly gave way to more thoughtful analysis. Journalists who initially jumped on the controversy bandwagon started examining their own approach. Some even publicly admitted they'd gotten it wrong. Clark's marketing value soared during this period. But here's what's interesting. She didn't chase endorsements or try to capitalize on controversy. Instead, she doubled down on basketball. When brands came calling, she chose partnerships that aligned with her values and love for the game. That authenticity didn't go unnoticed. The academic world took notice too. Sports psychology professors started using Clark's response as a case study in managing pressure. Her ability to maintain focus while under national scrutiny became a textbook example of mental resilience and athletic. Social media analytics revealed something surprising. While Kelly's initial tweet got lots of engagement, it was mostly negative. In contrast, clips of Clark's response went viral for all the right reasons. Young athletes shared them with comments like, "This is how you handle haters," and pure class. Former NBA and WNBA players weighed in, almost unanimously praising Clark's maturity. Basketball legend Subbird summed it up perfectly. "Some people play the game, others understand it. So Caitlin gets both." Coming from one of the sport's most respected voices, that carried weight. Even rival fans couldn't help but respect her approach. At away games where Clark would normally face hostile crowds, she started getting standing ovations, not just for her play but for how she carried herself off the court. That's rare in any sport. At